don't really keep track of that. So I guess I left the parent in the shop.
That's what she said. Is that what she said?
She didn't say that.
Yeah, Noah loves that joke every time. He's like, "That's what she said." 69,420. I'm like, Noah, come on, man. Like, none of that is funny. But
Yeah, it is funny though if you're 11 or 12.
yes.
Nothing is funny, frankly.
No, damn it.
I'm in a nothing is funny mood, which is a bad mood to be in when you're about to try to make funny things.
We're in a very serious time, but
We are? Is this time more serious than any other?
You know, but I've been so busy and so crazy, and I feel so disconnected and so disjointed from myself that when I come down to Castle Grayskull Studios and I see the microphones and the guitars and the laundry and the lizards.
Don't talk about the laundry. Aaron is very sensitive about the laundry.
And what else? And the water thing that gives water, and it just brings me back. I feel like I'm getting back to a part of myself that I've been neglecting.
If my pile of dirty laundry can recenter you in your life, then, feel free to come over and fold it if you want, or wash it.
That's what I do. I fold. I'm a folder. Yep. I mean, I always put them away in the wrong place. But
putting them away is so far beyond anything that we ever get to around here.
Yeah.
Just folding them.
Just hoping. The folding. Can you turn me up in the cans, please? I need to hear myself.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
Are you number 2?
Test. Yes. Okay.
Too much?
No, that's good. I love to hear myself.
Are you hard of hearing?
I'm what?
Okay.
So
I guess we should begin.
Let's try.
Let us begin.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovering the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life.
That's us.
And recovery. I'm Nat X.
Mike R.
And boy.
R stands for ridiculously annoyed at everything. I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
Do we have a show for them?
Do we have a show for you.
Today on RMA, the summer of RMA is in full swing as we navigate the tumultuous suburban summerscape, dodging beer after beer at barbecues and summer concerts. And we discuss how we maintain the no matter what abstinence objective. And we discuss the age-old myth that substance use is beneficial for creativity. All this and more today on a very special edition of RMA. And welcome back,
I
Mike.
can't believe it.
Fucking A.
Good to see you, Nat.
Here we are.
It's been a week and a day.
It has.
It actually has been a week.
Have we been able to get it out every 2 weeks? Or get
That's
it up?
what she said.
Or
have we been able to get it out every 2 weeks? No.
When was the last show?
We're a week behind.
Okay, I'm really sorry, guys.
Last week was fucked, though.
We are making progress. Yeah, why couldn't we do it last week? What happened?
Well, I was in the woods with a bunch of Boy Scouts.
No. You sure you want to admit that?
Yeah, no, it was fine. It was fine. It was all legal. But, yeah, we're going to get to that. Anyway,
yeah.
It's good to talk to you folks out there because it's been a while, and believe it or not, despite the fact that it may seem like Nat and I have lost interest in this podcast, it is in fact not true.
Nobody was thinking that until you said it.
Well, I don't know because we have an irregular schedule. It's a summer schedule, I like to think.
It is the summer schedule, and we are finding a way. This is probably, I know for me, this is on the top of my list as most important things that I do. And I'm never going to give up.
But being on the top of the list means it's a stressor. You know what I mean? It's like it's this thing that sits on your shoulder, yelling in your ear, "Hey, fucker, you got to record a podcast this week, you moron." You see that my internal voice is not nice to me. It should call me like you knucklehead, like Paul Churchill's
best.
Inner Voice stuff.
Right? Hey, knucklehead.
Calls him a knucklehead.
Saddle up.
I'm not up to the knucklehead thing yet. Well, I am. I'm actually not that hard on myself, but it does stress me out that we're not doing it. Anyway, so this would be a great time to drop an ad. This episode is brought to you by the Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon. What is it?
This is just the funniest thing you've said all day.
It is, because I'm asking people to spend money on a show that comes out every once in a while.
Quit talking them out of it. There's a lot more.
Sorry. What is the Patreon? It's a members-only subscription service.
Right.
And the best part of the Patreon is the Discord private message chat and video meeting platform.
That goes on no matter how many shows we're doing.
Or whether or not we're even in the Discord, which I try, but
it's on my phone. And the Monksters who are there are carrying the torch.
And they're doing a really good job.
Thank you, guys.
It's gotten to the point where I feel like I'm intruding on conversations when I drop in the middle.
Too.
And then nobody answers me. They're like, what's Mike doing in here?
Yeah, what does he want?
Who's that guy?
It's funny you should say that, because I had some similar feelings. I'm like, I'm feeling like an outsider in our podcast
I know, so weird.
Discord. But that's our fault. It's my fault, because I haven't been able to be on as much as I'd like to be. But I feel like slowly but surely we're crawling our way back into form.
I think so. So if you want to see what goes on in that mystery Discord, hop on over to Recovery in the Middle Age, patreon.com/Recovery in the Middle Ages to learn more and to sign up.
And the mugs are being shipped out. We have
LM from California got his mug.
Yes. So there's still merch is being shipped, and Monksters are still getting their new merch from.
By the way,
Patreon.
We have a problem.
Uh-oh.
My wife is now that she has some free time in the summer, she's getting on the Peloton and doing the thing.
Okay.
And you know what her view is? It's of that giant box of shirts.
Oh.
And she's like, "Isn't it time for Nat to babysit the shirts for a while?"
I could probably take
I said,
them.
"Yeah, okay, I'll make sure," because it is a big box and it's full of shirts that no one has bought.
Well,
and I don't even know if they can.
Well, that's the thing. My worry is that the store isn't functioning or something, and I just haven't been able to.
We are lazy podcast.
It's not I mean, look, it's one of those things. If you do want a shirt and for some reason the website isn't doing what it's supposed to, send an email to
just
Mike
email
Gar
me your bank account information
at middleagesrecovery.com
or something. Yeah.
Yes. Send us your social security number, address, and bank account number with routing.
I'm going to try and get some video of this show, since we are recording into the Q2N Zoom handy video record. I don't know why I'm saying that. They're not paying me any money.
Maybe they will.
But it's, the video editing takes a little bit longer than the audio editing, so I didn't get around to it last time. I got to suck in the gut. Take another one. Okay. I like that one.
And we're taking a picture for our Discord.
Ugh, I hate my.
Yeah, we always send a shot to the inner sanctum of us.
We can probably upload the picture a little later, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Do it now while we're recording the podcast.
No, of course not.
Do you have something you want to say?
I did. I had something that's just been weighing on my mind.
You know what's been weighing on my mind? I didn't check the audio levels before we started, so hold on a second.
Ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Where can they find us, Mike?
I have no fucking idea.
Podbean, Apple Tunes.
They're listening to it. They know where to find us. Is the website working?
The website works.
MiddleAgesRecovery.com. That's all you need to know. Join our recovery support and Monkster Hangout Den on the private Facebook groups.
Right.
We have weekly RMA recovery meetings, although
they have been.
I think last week only Elizabeth showed up, and I don't think she had the code to get in. So sorry, Elizabeth. Grant couldn't make it.
We're gonna have to make a concerted effort.
We say that every week, and we
don't
do it. We got.
I feel like it's happening. I feel like there's momentum, and that meeting will fill up again.
Okay.
So come see us.
Anyway, great reviews will be read on the air. The best place to do that is on the Apple Podcast app, but we'll take it where we can get it. Just much like being married. If you like what you hear, please give us 5 stars and help others find RMA through search. Okay? Every review helps. Also, tell us your story by calling the RMA hotline at 516-888-6297. Leave us a message. Keep it 3 to 5 minutes. Tell us your story. Say hello. Tell us how much the show means to you.
Do you have one?
One what?
A message?
No.
Yeah.
I had one last week. But, there's a review.
We have a review.
I was just going to go poke one up. Okay.
Do you want to read it or shall I?
I'll read it if you want. It's fine. Okay. Saviors in a Small Town by Sir Guyford.
I think that's Guy from Patreon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir Guy.
Cool.
Maybe he's British? Sir Guy.
Sir Guyford.
Sir Guy Ford. Anyway, I'm from a small town that only has AA as a recovery option. Ooh, sad trombone noise. I struggled with my recovery in the program until I found RMA. In a non-biased way, these two witty and intellectual gentlemen,
I'll take it.
That's my dad, explore many options to a healthy recovery that I would never have been exposed to without them. I appreciate the apparent honesty and willingness to speak about their own experiences. Not only has my recovery blossomed, but I'm also connected to an amazing community of like-minded individuals who only aspire to raise each other up. Much love and respect for all the Monksters around the table, down the street, around the world, down the street, and across the table. I fucked that
Boom. Up. Thank you, Guy. That was awesome. And
thank you.
I really appreciate it. Guy has been really active in our community on Facebook. There's the Facebook group that we've got like almost 800 people on there supporting each other's recovery.
800,000 people, you mean?
Yeah.
800,000 people.
7,000 on the main page. But
yeah, but we should post on the main page occasionally.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah. I just post. In fact, we have a Monkster Speak from the page.
Do we?
Monksters Speak.
What have they been up to? Let's take a peek. The segment we call Monkster Speak. Speak.
That is a pandemic effort, is what we call that. I think we need to
You think we need a new one?
Yeah.
We'll produce our very own.
I was thinking I was all hot shit when I put that together.
It's cool. So Monkster Speak. This is the segment where, if you're new to the show, we start discussions on our groups, on the Patreon or the Facebook, and we, relay what all the Monksters are talking about. So I posted this for a reason, because I was suffering from this. Anyone else stressing at work today? How do you push through those, quote, I could really use a drink moments, if you still get them? Which is a question that was definitely plaguing me last week or so, when I was just getting steamrolled by life and work. And
did you have I really could use a drink moment?
I didn't, because if I did, I'd be calling you.
Yeah.
So Eric B says, think through the drink. A drink never changed how I felt inside. Usually made it harder. More anxiety.
So much anxiety.
Yeah.
I've heard so much lately about alcohol and anxiety, like how the two are basically, Siamese twins, or co-joined twins, as the case may be these days. But regardless, they are together like
peas and carrots,
peanut butter and jelly,
right?
Except not good tasting.
Not good. Not at all. They do go together.
It's funny, and in fact, okay, I have something about anxiety that I have to bring up later, right around the recovery in the news segment.
Okay,
so
I'll write it down.
Remind me. It has to do with a celebrity who has become sober.
Okay.
Anyway, Carrie C says how she pushes through those I could really use a drink moments is a nap, if possible. I'm usually just tired. Yes.
Good idea. The problem I had with that when I was really struggling was that all I wanted to do was nap. But, if you are capable, some people can take naps. Some people aren't nap people. I don't know. Right. What kind of person are you? Can you do a nap?
Well, it's funny. I can do a nap, but I never used to be able to. But since the pandemic, and I find myself working from home
since
more
you hit
than
50, you started napping.
Yes. Well, I don't. I attribute it to the fact that I have a comfortable couch within 10 yards of my desk. But I suppose it could be advanced decrepitude and age. But I also get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so sometimes I need a nap. But it's fine, and it really does reset the clock. But I think a lot of people don't really have the option to crawl away from or under their desk and take a nap. Right. I mean,
yeah, I would have to be pretty hungover to really sleep at work or take naps.
You don't strike me as the napping type.
No, not lately. Not in the last several years.
But I mean, like, so without any sort of substance running through your veins, so to speak, alcohol, whatever, the idea of lying down and taking a nap, would that even occur to you?
No, I can't.
You seem like you have
go,
a lot of energy wrapped up in that frame of yours.
Wrapped up. And I don't know if I've always been this way or just while I'm sober and drinking coffee.
Right. Yeah, I did just serve you a double espresso at 6:30 at night, which for me would keep me up until Saturday morning. But and this being Wednesday, but
I feel good, and you should too.
I mean, yeah, I feel fine.
Melissa
I had
M.
a glass of water, though.
You don't want an espresso? Yeah. Next up is Melissa M. I mentally take it off the table, even as a possibility, except at my in-laws. Then I use self-binding.
You tie your hands behind your back so you don't smack them?
Yeah. Melissa, I want more explanation on this. So tell me on the Patreon. Melissa's been a big supporter on Patreon, so she's always chiming in if you want to.
She's one of our more active Patreon people.
Keeping the dream
which
alive.
We love it. Guy C2, or GC2 for his rap name. Did you make that up?
Yeah, because it's like Guy something the second. And I thought we should call him, because I'm always looking for nicknames.
Right.
GC2.
GC2.
You know, rapping.
Yes. I try to step out of the situation, says Guy C2, GC2. Usually the I need a drink moment is me trying to cope with something I perceive as unmanageable. When I step back and reason my way through, it's usually something out of my control and ultimately doesn't even affect me. Yeah, that's true. I mean, getting yourself away from the thing is important, because then you realize that what you think is really vital and important is really not as important. Certainly not as important to throw sobriety away and have a drink over.
So this is interesting, because I've been reflecting a lot back on my recovery and how my behavior and thinking patterns have changed. And there was definitely a period of time after I was struggling every hour to fight cravings. And once I got some time under my belt, I still had these situations where the thought would appear and I would have to actively do something, reason through it. They say in the rooms, play the tape forward. And so that was a big help to me. I don't find myself needing to reason with myself as much as I used to, but this is a great way of pushing through these cravings, especially if you've been doing recovery work or you have a particularly bad experience that you're remembering. So you get that feeling, you get that craving, and then to have your sober self come straight out and go, well, let's look at this. What happened the last time, or what do you expect will happen? And you just sort of talk yourself off the ledge. So I think that's a great.
That's really the essence of it, isn't it? To give yourself, to have created for yourself the reflective space where you can actually play the tape forward,
right?
Because that's not always something that you can do unless you're serious about your recovery and unless you have a desire to stop drinking.
Right. It's like anything in sales. In order to really sell it, you have to buy into it. You got to believe it. You can't just be. That's why it's tricky to say fake it till you make it. I mean, that does work a little bit, getting you into the spirit of doing something. But at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to convince yourself of something you don't believe. So
that's very true.
Working on it.
But you have to have faith that you can overcome the craving or the desire. And I'm not talking about religious faith.
I was about to say.
I'm talking about self-faith, which is very different.
So you say 3 Hail Marys and walk on your knees for a mile.
I mean,
for your penance.
I think that would make me want to drink even more if I did that. That's it. Queen Elizabeth I of Monkster Haven. That's good.
What was that? I missed that.
Queen Elizabeth I of Monkster Haven.
Of Monkster Haven.
Is that the land that we have created in Discord?
I like it.
Monkster Haven.
I think it is the inner sanctum of Monkster Haven. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I love it.
Beautiful. I try to feel whatever it is that a drink would make go away. It's hard and a constant challenge.
Wow. I really like
diving right in.
I really like that. I've come across this in recovery before, where it's recommended by some that if you are feeling that uncomfortability, that uncomfortable feeling, that instead of trying to avoid it or numb it, that you should lean into it and really feel it, but with a clear head. Not just, I'm going to drink a few, like a 6-pack and then deal with it. It's like making yourself feel that and then a lot of times I think by facing it, you realize it isn't so bad. and then you're able to push through. So that's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea. I think some days that's a better idea than other days. I think you have to know, are you well fed? Are you well rested? Are you able to handle this thing head on? Because some days you don't want to handle it head on. Those days, go take a nap.
Take a nap, but don't do other things.
Right. Every strategy is situational, I would say, right? Because sometimes you can play the tape forward. Sometimes you're like, oh, fuck the tape. Sometimes you can meet the thing head on. Sometimes you just need to check out for 20 minutes on the couch, right? But not with heroin, but preferably with just sleep.
But the one tool,
melatonin, maybe.
Yeah, melatonin. But the one thing you can't do.
Not the day. Don't take melatonin during the day. If you have to go back to work.
Yeah, that'll knock you out. But you can't. The one tool you can't use is to go back to using and drinking.
Oh, Scott says that the 69-cent Big Gulp is his answer.
Scott Wig?
Yeah, I'll go for that.
I'm just happy to have him participating. He's a superstar.
I will say, though, and that's sort of like a toss-away joke line, but there have been a lot of times where I've felt the craving for like a beer or something that if I go out and I have a big soda,
it does the trick.
Or a big glass of water,
Yeah.
Because it's just like what I'm really is I'm hungry. I'm not thirsty for a drink, you know, or something. And if I put something in there, just the very act of drinking a drink, whether it have alcohol in it or not, takes care of the thing.
Yeah.
Like, don't drink alcohol, but you know what I mean?
It's like putting your body through the motion of picking up the drink and drinking it, but not actually doing it. And it also helps if you're and we'll talk about some barbecues we had, but just the very act of holding a drink at like a wedding or a barbecue, it eliminates a lot of the issues some people run into of being offered a drink or someone seeing you not drinking and go, what the hell? Why aren't you drinking?
I had a hell of an experience of that last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it on the Life?
Do you know where I was?
Were you at the Yes concert? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I was at the Yes concert.
And
fucking disconnected me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recorded that at the show.
Bootleg.
More bootleg than I was hoping for, but the board didn't work.
Well, John Anderson kicked major ass.
Yeah, we saw John Anderson, who, for those of you who are under the age of 90, is the lead singer from the classic version of Yes.
That's right.
And Nat and I went to see him last Wednesday in sort of a reprise of our first mandate that we had years ago when both of us were still actively drinking like fish. But we went to the show last week, and it was John Anderson. He was playing with a group of kids from like one of these schools of rock.
Yeah, it was really interesting. There's like 20 kids on stage playing different instruments at different songs.
And it worked. I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't yes, but it was like, he's just great. But anyway, as soon as we got there, and I had been to the early part of the week, I was in scout camp up in the woods.
Scouting.
Like no cell phone service except for like 5 minutes a day. I'm just kind of stuck out there in the middle of nowhere. And I wasn't thinking clearly because I bought the ticket for that show the same day that I got back. So I got back at like noon after not like sleeping at all for a week. And I'm out there and I'm sweating my ass off for a whole week, trying to like take charge of and watch and take care of like 27 other people's children. And, I got in there and, we went up to the bar and I wanted to get a Diet Coke, but you ordered a Shirley Temple. And I was like, and it comes and it's this beautiful liquid, like sweating. Yeah. It's like got the swirls of the red grenadine in there, and it's got the 7-Up and the ginger ale. And I was like, I got to have one of those. Yeah. Man. I have to have one of those. And it was probably the most delicious thing that I ever drank.
Wow.
Because I was so dehydrated from a week of sweating my ass off in the woods and drinking like treated lake water, that it was like, and then you backed me up and got me another one.
That's right.
We had two of them. And I asked them if they had non-alcoholic beer, and they said yes. And I was like, that is so the idea of like drinking something that tastes like beer right now is so unappealing to me.
That's
like
the Shirley Temple does the trick.
I want a Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
And I would have been embarrassed to order that myself because of some misplaced idea that men shouldn't belly up to a bar and order a Shirley Temple.
You see, I use that, and I love throwing it out there because it can be funny. Like, why is this guy ordering a Shirley Temple?
Yeah.
So I do it as like partially shtick and partially because I like Shirley Temples. And it's a nice replacement drink. If you're at a bar and you want to order a made drink, Shirley Temple.
That bartender, to her credit, was like nothing. She was like, I don't know what she was thinking, but she didn't say anything. She just was like, here you go.
She's like, don't make eye contact.
Right. Don't talk to these creepy men.
So
that was a great show.
The Yes concert was awesome.
Did you feel like drinking at the Yes show?
No.
No, me either.
Not at all.
Not even a little bit. And you know why?
Why?
Two reasons. The two drunk guys that came up to me. Right?
Yeah, Mike makes friends with all of the drunk Yes fans.
Well, this one guy, he turns around, a classic Long Islander, right at the set break. You hear him, he's like, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm like, sure.
That's when I pretended like I didn't hear and looked away. And I'm like,
Mike's got it. He's like, what makes a guy like your age into this kind of music? Like, first of all, he tried to tell me it was the 60th anniversary of the Close to the Edge record. And I'm like, it's 50 years. He's like, it's 60. I'm like, it's really...
It says it up on
50.
the wall.
I know. I don't make me tap the sign, it's right up there. He's like, okay, whatever. He goes, what year were you born? I go, 68. He goes, oh, you're old.
Yeah,
you're older than I thought.
You don't look old and tired like me.
Right. And I'm like, well, at this point I'm a little annoyed because I was going to be like, well, maybe if you stop drinking 20 pints a night and, go out and exercise every once in a while, you'd look a little better. Yeah. But I didn't say that. But
he looked like Methuselah.
He's not looking healthy, and I don't think he was that much older than me.
No, he was probably
maybe
younger.
He was like 60.
I bet you he was younger, and it made him even more angry.
I was like, I grew up on this music, and then he left me alone. And then as he was leaving, he's like, you should look older, he said to me. Like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
But then this other guy in a Grateful Dead t-shirt came staggering up to me right before they played Roundabout. He's like, yeah, I knew they were going to play Roundabout. It's a Yo show.
I heard that one.
I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, man. That guy was shit-faced. And you know what annoys me, though? You know what really grinds my gears?
What grinds your gears, Peter?
Good. The fucking drunks at the bar grind my gears, man. You're sitting there, you're trying to listen to them play soft shot, and there's these fucking knuckleheads that were standing up there yammering away. Like, you want to go to a bar, just go to a bar and get drunk. Why pay like $75 or whatever for a ticket and then just stand there and drink your pints and not even listen to what's going on stage? Like, that used to drive me crazy even when I was drinking. And
me too. I had the same experience when I would go see Martin Sexton, who is a singer-songwriter. It's just usually acoustic guitar and his voice. And it's a very niche audience. Usually it's expensive to see him, for one, and it's usually a smaller room, and it's usually people who are there specifically to see him. Like, you wouldn't wander into the Stephen Talkhouse and him against it and pay $150 for a ticket just to be loud and drink.
Apparently some people do, though, right?
Well, yeah, I never understood it. I'd be there, and it's a soft song. It's one of his best, and everybody, I think, had to pay to get in. And there's always like a couple of guys who just don't seem to get it. And you have to go, shh, and turn around and shh, and give them a look. And it's just anxiety. Like, what is it? Like, is anybody out there someone who drinks and talks loudly at concerts like this? Because we want to know why you do it. So there was plenty of those at this one.
I mean, Bob Weir of Grateful Dead, they used to do that to him. He had a space TRI out in Marin County, which is sort of like a performance space that he sort of rigged up to do I don't know, couch tour. You sit there and it's a video and it's an audio broadcast, but there's a bar there and people would get loud at the bar, and a couple times from the stage he'd just be like, will you just shut the fuck up?
I don't get
John Anderson is too nice to tell people to shut the fuck up, but
hey guys, can you shut the fuck up? He's got such a high voice. It's so
he does, but he sounds really good.
I mean, his voice, and sorry if you're not a Yes fan, but
it's probably most of you are not, but
he's got to be 70 something.
77.
Right? He sounds just like the record. It's like, sometimes there's different kinds of singing. Paul McCartney has a very easy time singing because he doesn't push his voice. But and he's the same way. Like a Robert Plant is pushing and pushing when he sings. It's a different kind, and it's harder to maintain that in your 70s. But John Anderson, I mean, you could see the ease with which he hits those notes. I mean, he's barely straining. You can see it just bam, and it's so good. But that comes from a style of singing that he's just very good at. And
I also think the guys that have achieved longevity in that business are the ones that took care of themselves. I mean,
did you ever hear the Rolling? what's the Rolling Stone singer? Mick Jagger. You ever hear him, quote unquote, sing today? I mean, there wasn't much singing to begin with, but with a John Anderson or a Paul McCartney, they really just hit it.
A lot of the guys are just dead.
When you die, your voice deteriorates.
It does. The posthumous albums are never as good as the ones they make when they're alive.
No, I agree.
Yeah, Jerry Garcia's got dead 20 some odd years now. So
yeah,
it occurred to me this morning, not for the first time, but that I am as old as Jerry Garcia was when he died.
So you're at the age.
I'm at the age this year.
Didn't he die of some methadone poisoning or something?
No, it was basically a heart attack, but he had checked himself out of Betty Ford, and he was convalescing at home, and he was just about to go into the Serenity Knolls to finish his detox, or maybe it was to get another 30 days in a program, and he died of a heart attack. But he never took care of himself, and he looked a lot older than 54.
Can you imagine just being at that place in your life at 54 to still be going back? I think back on that cycle of pain I was in, going to rehab, coming out, going to outpatient, trying to get sober, upsetting everyone in my life, including myself, losing jobs, and then going back in, and going up and coming down. I never want to go through that again.
No, but you also weren't Jerry Garcia, so
true.
He didn't even have to buy drugs. Listening to that interview with Mountain Girl, Carolyn Adams, his wife, on Dopey a couple of weeks ago.
That was great.
What really struck me about that, how she was relaying about what those years were like for him. It really, really kind of tugged at my heartstrings, because he made colossal efforts in the late 80s to get clean, and he was clean for a number of years. But when you're Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead, everywhere you go, people who are trying to get access to you to be your friend are just going to give you drugs. And she was saying it was very hard for him to stay clean, because every place he went, people were trying to put heroin under his face.
Yeah, sometimes you're only as good as your options, and same thing with Scott Weiland, I think, with Stone Temple Pilots. And there's plenty of famous musicians who famously could never get it and ended up dying because that lifestyle. I can't even remotely relate to that kind of life.
Well, you talk about people, places, and things. If you're a working musician like that, it must be incredibly difficult to me, especially if you're Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah,
he's like a band that was sort of hatched in a crucible of drug use.
Yeah.
But how the road from psychedelics to black tar heroin is a windy and strange road indeed, I would imagine.
Yeah. And Anthony Kiedis famously, he wrote Scar Tissue of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah.
I've read that book a couple of times. But it's the same kind of thing. You're trying to get clean, but you're just a god, and people are just throwing naked women and cocaine at you.
Yeah, and you start smelling your own farts and thinking your shit don't stink. By the way, what do you think of his mustache? Anthony Kiedis' new mustache. He looks like Burt Reynolds, I think. It's really weird. And put a shirt on, for Christ's sake. You're not 25
For the love
anymore.
of God.
Anywho, should we talk about your wiener now?
Yeah, so...
not your wiener, technically. It's your other part of your body.
Right. So many of you know that...
For a segue.
We shtick a lot about...
Should I stop shticking now?
No, keep shticking. And kicking.
You're kicking the camera.
We shtick a lot about having to urinate frequently. And,
we do.
Well, the truth is that this is kind of a problem, at least for me. And so my family, it interrupts my sleep. It just has gotten worse. And many men, I think, out there, maybe women too, in your middle ages, these types of things start to go wrong.
Do women have this problem?
I feel like it's not the same or as bad or something because of the different plumbing. But
do you remember the commercial? It's a growing problem. It's a going problem.
So in any case, I've been threatening to see a urologist about it for a long time, and finally, it's gotten so bad, that I finally did it. There was a urologist in my office building, and so I made the appointment. I went to see him, and I got a proctological exam.
How was that for you?
It was shocking. And it was unexpected, because I didn't know what to expect.
Well, you're into aliens. I mean, the probing was something unfamiliar to you?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe those are just traveling urologists from the future or something.
That's unfortunately our planet is the internship location for the galactic proctology,
space urology, and so I was glad to have gone to the urologist. But what I wanted was him to say, "You have an enlarged prostate. Here is a pill to help you." Instead, he said, after checking, your prostate is fine. It's not enlarged. You're fine. But I think it was out of 35 points of concern, I scored 31.
Oof.
And he said that this was disturbing.
Oh, dear.
I said, you're telling me. As I pulled my pants up. And basically, I have to get...
Sorry, better late than never.
I have to do all of these blood tests, and I have to take a diary of my...
Is this a urine diary?
It is.
Dear diary.
It's called a voiding diary.
Dear diary.
So
today I was on the bus and I had...
Yeah, it was today. So it's all about fluid intake. It's all about...
do you have to put down what's coming in as well as what's going out?
Yes, I have to do both. So that's why I haven't done it yet.
Did you put that double espresso down?
Oh, I would.
Okay.
I would.
Right.
But yeah, I'm supposed to, because I do drink a lot of coffee. And so, between the blood tests and this voiding diary, and the thing that takes it is I have to do a special test to test the pressure of my urine stream.
How do you test the pressure of a urine stream?
It's called Euroflow.
Covering the Middle Ages.
Euroflow, it's a test used to assess voiding problems. This test is quick, and there are no catheters or needles used.
Whew.
You will start the test by voiding into a special toilet that records the strength and the time it takes to void and the amount of urine, and it's this whole situation.
God.
I have to drink 2 16-ounce bottles of water prior to the appointment, and it's some contraption that probably they're just doing it to bill out to insurance.
Of course.
I probably don't need it. But it makes me very nervous because what am I thinking? Like what everyone else thinks.
Right, of course.
It's cancer.
Right.
That's what I'm...
Have you had a blood test yet?
No, it's tomorrow.
Okay. Fasted?
They told me I didn't have to fast. Isn't that weird? Because I said, do I have... Like, no.
Well, anyway, let's all say a prayer for Nat's prostate. I'm sure you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's just one of these middle-aged worry things,
Yeah. It sucks, but anyway, that was my exciting time visiting the urologist. And speaking of the urologist, you did this scout camp thing.
This is
it has nothing
segue.
Yeah. Mike was away at a legit scouting camp with Ben, and were you one of the proctors? Is that a thing?
There's the segue. I was I was an assistant scoutmaster, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Scout camp is probably whatever you're picturing in your head. It's pretty much that. Well, I don't know what you sick people are picturing in your head, but it's, you go, we stayed in a cabin. The three scoutmasters stayed in a cabin together. This is the first time I've slept in a cabin with 2 other men.
It's the first time you slept with a scoutmaster?
As far as I can remember. Yeah. But, we blocked those things out. And that was weird, sleeping with 2 other guys, and there were other scoutmasters there, and then there was
quote of the day.
Well, I mean, at 54, how often do you find yourself bunking with other people? Right?
Not often.
Not that often.
Yeah. So what was that like?
It was weird.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep much because I'm very weird in particular about my sleep environment. I need to have earplugs in and all this kind of stuff, and white noise and all this shit.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any of that in the
Me
woods.
too.
But all that aside, and Ben had a miserable time.
Really? Yeah.
He claims he did, but I think I saw him having fun.
I think I saw him having
Well, he went off and did his little merit badge classes. He did a geocaching one, which was pretty cool. He learned how to set geocaches. And then he did a swimming one, which was cool. And then he did a fishing one, which wasn't cool because they didn't have any bait. They gave him rubber worms and all kinds of stuff. And he couldn't catch anything. And it was 2 hours a day. And it was also hot. And the food he liked the food. The food was actually atrocious.
Oy vey.
It was terrible in such small portions. But what struck me is several years ago, if I had been tasked to go and be a scoutmaster at something like that, I would have been jonesing for a drink the entire time I was up there. And in fact, I might have even gone so far as to maybe try and sneak a little something up in there. But I will say this, the scout camp is no nonsense when it comes to shit like that. There was and even the guys in my the other scoutmasters that I was with, none of them,
it's like the normal drunks
brought booze, right.
Okay.
So some of the guys, like, I think I made a reference a couple weeks ago about somebody who showed up at the scout meeting who had one too many.
Yeah.
He was not there. Did not participate. And the guys who were there, are not big boozers, which is interesting because in my mind, my perception of what men do together when they hang out in the woods usually,
Greek military
usually involves drinking.
Right.
But I didn't feel like I really enjoyed the experience in a way that I would not have had I been just waiting to get out of the woods to get back to, a bar or something on the way home so I could stop and have some drinks. And that made a big difference in the amount of fun that I had. I had more fun, I think, than Ben had. Because, me and a couple of the other scouts, you have some free time, right?
Yeah.
So we went on a 5-mile hike around the lake, the four of us, awesome. And it was really cool. And it was just like guys hanging out and talking, without anybody being drunk, which is also kind of weird for me. Like, when in my adult life have I experienced hanging out with a bunch of guys on a camping trip and not been drunk? Never, really.
So that was a first, and maybe it showed them, maybe they were thinking in the back of their heads like, maybe do you think they were thinking, wow, I'm having fun without drinking? Or were they just thinking, man, I wish I had a drink?
No, none of those guys are real big drinkers.
Yeah.
At least the guys who were there,
Gives you hope.
It gives me hope for me. Yes.
Yeah, hope for you.
I was like, this is great. I can do this, and even though it's almost 3 years now, it still sits in the back of my head that, I'm having this experience and I'm having it without giving any of my mental real estate over to thinking about when I'm going to have a drink next.
Yeah. And I've noticed too that the time I used to spend thinking about drinking or using is now replaced by thinking to myself, wow, I can't believe I don't want to drink or use, So that's the phase I'm at too, where that's really primarily what I'm like surprised by.
But I don't mind thinking about that,
It's like I'm constantly like proving to myself that,
But that needing the drink around 5 o'clock was like an itch that if I didn't scratch it, it would just drive me crazy. It was like a mosquito.
As you scratch your leg.
I scratched my leg.
So that's cool.
So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, and my son Noah came over to hang out with Ben while we were doing the show. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, they're upstairs right now, wheeling and dealing. Ben is selling Noah video games, and apparently Ben is charging too much because your son was complaining vociferously.
Yeah, he's trying to get away with as little money as possible. He was telling me his whole strategy. He's like, okay, when you're negotiating, you got to give a low price, and then he'll give a high price, and he's got the whole thing.
Yeah, because I heard Noah saying, "What? It's a piece of plastic. I offered you $3 or something like that." I was like, guys, just remember, your friends don't let it get out of control,
Yeah, it was.
So anyway, you
you
went over to your boss's house, right?
Oh,
yesterday?
My goodness. Yeah, so
or Sunday, right? That's
it was Saturday.
Oh,
so at this new job, I've been at for about 5 months. Recently, things have been going better. It's still extremely stressful, and a major change happened where we had to let the person I was supposed to be working with had to let her go because for a number of reasons, most of which is that she hadn't really been able to do anything due to God knows what. And so that was stressful.
She doesn't listen to the podcast, does she?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But she knows she couldn't really do it, and we couldn't afford to keep dealing with it, honestly. And so I was invited. The owner of the company was like, I want to meet the family. It's going to be a beautiful day Saturday. Come over for a swim.
Oh,
yeah.
Nothing like spending Saturday with the boss.
Yeah, but it's weird because he's a great guy. We had fun, but I still, and I wasn't like worried that it would be terrible, but it's still awkward,
Of course.
Anytime it's like, let's have our families meet, and it's like, all right, because then there's pressure.
Mad Men kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, but you know what? We got there. I brought my kids, and they jumped in the pool, and he's a very affable guy. And
was he manning the barbecue?
We didn't, but we avoided barbecuing.
Okay.
So we ended up going out to dinner. But he got to meet my wife. He got some time speaking to my wife. And his mother showed up, so I got to meet his mother.
Oh.
And then his sister showed up because I think he had forgotten, although he says he didn't forget, but I'm thinking he forgot, that there was 25 high school kids with his nephew in the high school chorus coming to his house, I think, to like practice or something.
Oh, my God.
And so we were sitting there. We were hanging out a bunch of hours. We jumped in the pool, just talking, noshing. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, my nephew's here with his chorus. And so then we decided to all go out to dinner.
Did they perform for you or did you hear them?
I didn't get to hear them because we ended up leaving.
Oh, okay.
So, but no, it was a really great time. It made me feel, good knowing that, I could have a personal relationship with someone. I may have to have a long-term, long-term business relationship with, but if you can also be, friends,
yes.
I'm all for it.
My boss is, I consider him now after 15 years to be more of a friend than a boss.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're just people, know, and it's good if we can, see eye to eye, and it makes working a little bit more pleasant. But he also, as some of you may know, I think I said that he knows about some of the worst things that have ever happened to me because the person that used to work at the company, he told him all about it.
Oh.
So he had full knowledge of the OD and the fact that I was in recovery. And so that was interesting when he sort of approached me about it. But luckily, he's extremely, he's a psychologist. He's, worked in the field a long time. So, you're going to run into addiction and things like that. So he's been really great about it. But he also knew that I did this podcast, and I told him I was reluctant to send him the link. And so I kind of made it clear that, like, you know what? I don't really think this is something you want to listen to. And I'm not 100% comfortable. And so I think it was yesterday or the day before, he said to me, oh, hey, Nat, don't be mad. I found your podcast.
Oh,
and I was like, how did you do that? And he was like, I just typed Nat and then podcast. And I'm like,
you're not hard to find.
No. Yeah. And you know what? I don't care because I haven't said anything on the show that I'm truly ashamed or embarrassed of. No. I feel like the act of airing it, and he knows me as I am today, and he always says he can't believe I used to be in that scenario. Even as a psychologist, now he knows that, yeah, you can recover. You can go from A to B, and it is possible. So that was fun and a little bit nerve-wracking, but we had a good time. And Mike, if you're listening out there, we had fun.
What a testament to his foresight and in giving you an opportunity.
And that's
because
a
lot of people wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
they wouldn't take the chance.
Yeah, and he knew within the first month. He told me about all of it. And,
wow.
And I said, and he goes, you know what? But he believes in second chances. And I'm like, this would be a fifth or sixth, but that people can change. And he said all the right things. It doesn't define you, and he's seen what I can do the way I am, and blah blah blah. So that was my weekend.
It must be really interesting to have somebody know, like, because people at my job now, they know that I don't drink, but they don't know the whole backstory.
Yeah, he knows the worst thing that ever happened to me.
There's nothing that they can ever be found out about you that is
It's all out there. So my employer basically knows the worst thing, pretty much.
I've been as I drift towards the third year, I've been entertaining these fantasies just.
Does it involve Cub Scout camp or
no? God, that's sick. Why go
just
there?
Tying it in
of just making a post on social media, just putting it all out there because at this point, it's so funny. Like the things you worry about when you first quit, like somebody finding out or this, that, and like you get a couple years down the road and all of a sudden you're like, I really don't give a shit anymore.
Yeah. Not only that,
you feel
good about what you've accomplished. You almost want to brag a little bit.
I'm very comfortable in my skin now in a way that I wasn't during that first year. Like I was always worried someone was going to find out my secrets or whatever, and now I'm just like, you know what? My life is my life. It's out there,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a healthier attitude. I mean, it's of course important to remember that you may be judged for something like that, but I find it's fired. But I feel a lot better having it all out there, as much as probably I didn't want my boss to know that particular thing about me.
Right.
It does give me some security feeling because I know he can't like find something out and then fire me now because there's nothing else like.
I wonder how much of the feeling of the worry about that is like, how much of that is sort of like latent, like control tendencies. Like you want to control the information, you want to control the narrative, you want to control what people think about you, and really like you can't control any of that stuff, right? Like people are going to think about what they're going to think about you, and no matter what you want them to think, like you can sort of try and create a structure for people to operate in when they're looking at you like, oh, Mike is this or Mike is that, but really, on the inside you're totally different. But at the end of the day, like trying to control people and what they think about you is exhausting.
It's futile.
It's almost and it's futile. Exactly. Yeah. Completely exhausting, completely futile. So why not just put it all out there?
Put it all out there. Let the chips, or is it the chits, fall where they may. I think it's chit.
Is it? I always thought it was chips, but
I do too.
Like potato chips. I
think it's chips.
I always envision a big bag of potato chips being ripped open and the chips falling where they may.
So what's a chit?
Something with gambling, right?
Maybe. So that chits fall where they may. We'll look it up.
On the other hand, though, there are reasons that why everybody in the world doesn't need to know everything about you.
Right. Anonymity.
That's the flip side.
Has developed in recovery for a good reason.
But is just keeping a part of you to yourself, is that anonymity or is that just some kind of self-protective mechanism,
I think it can be self-preservation, and certainly that's how I used to view it and still do at some point. You don't want to make your life any more difficult than it already is by, putting things like that out there when, we don't know how people feel because it's a very, the world is same thing with coming out as gay. And if you come out as gay today, it's very different than if it was 1982.
Yeah.
So as the world seems to be changing and we're putting these things out there, I feel like it's getting more easier to be honest with our, our recovery. And I think in the end, it is better. I think
it's also very weird though, because in the 1980s, if you had a drinking or a drug problem, there was no social media. Like, why do I feel compelled to go onto social media and announce to the world this thing about me? Right?
Yeah. Wait. Let's go back.
Who would ever do that? Like, you couldn't even do that.
Let's
You'd have
rewind.
to take out an ad in the paper.
I want to rewind a second.
Okay.
You're saying, I feel like this didn't get enough attention. You want to make a post on your personal page?
Paul Churchill calls it burning the ships, right?
Yeah.
You take away the sting. Like, you're out right now. Anybody who you'd worry about knowing about your history with drugs and alcohol knows, right?
They know. Yeah, even our friends, the parents of, I mean, they don't know the details, but it's fully out there that Nat doesn't drink because he used to drink too much.
Right.
They don't need to know all of the details.
Yes,
it's
right.
not just alcohol, obviously.
But I don't know. So some of it is this weird confessional society that we live in where we feel compelled to put all of our private business out for public consumption.
Right. That's social media, like you were saying. So there wasn't a way to do that.
But I wonder, what sort of psychology is at play there? Because, someone like, Paul Churchill said, he was very big on, making a Facebook post, to announce that he had quit drinking and all this stuff. And I'm thinking that option didn't exist for, all of time until the last 10 years.
Well, it's not everybody's business either.
It's not. But so why when you have this information inside that you feel like you want to get out, Like, why do I feel that way? I guess I'm trying to explore that. Like, why was I on my run this morning thinking about writing that and what that would look like? And why do I want to put that out into the world? Is there anything good that can come of that?
I think it's because deep down inside you want to be accepted by your peers as your authentic self, not some fake, image of you. You've got a real desire because you really have learned to love who you've become. Whereas in the past, maybe you didn't, and you had more of a hiding, style on, you didn't want everybody to know everything, but now you're feeling good about yourself. And you're like, I think everyone would like me better if they knew this,
So it's just it's a craven desire for more likes.
I think so. Not quite so simply, but I think it's a desire to have your authentic self out there, because you like yourself.
And that's the most expeditious way to do it, is to announce to everybody in social media.
People announce everything.
I got to think about that, because maybe there's other ways to do it. My opinion would be, I wouldn't necessarily do that. What I would do is I would think of the people in my life who I don't know, and who I really want them to understand who I am today, and maybe speak to them or bring it up in a conversation with them. So like all 1,000 people on your Facebook page, 10,000.
10,000
followers.
So you don't,
no, I'm kidding. It's like a couple hundred people.
Maybe just the people who you actually care about knowing. But that's more difficult and more passive aggressive than going to each one and saying, or having that conversation.
It's sort of like a reverse amends. Like you travel to each person individually and tell them that you're like,
I've been a good person.
I've been a good person.
I know. I was a drug addict.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but it's just something that was on my mind lately. But what do you guys think? Is there any value in doing something like that, or
what do you think?
Just let sleeping dogs lie.
Let them lie.
As it were.
And Mike R at middleagedrecovery.com. And did you want to cover anything else in our life update before we move on to a very exciting episode?
Yes, I do. I want to cover two things.
Go for it. Oh yeah.
I want you to talk about the fireman guy.
Oh,
that made an appearance in episode 86, I think it was.
Yeah. So we had a barbecue at my house on Sunday. Only reason you weren't invited is because it was.
Yeah, what the fuck wasn't I invited?
I know, because I was like, why didn't Mike come with Ben? But it was like Max, my younger son's friends thing. Like my wife is
plus I was having
you had
a barbecue
anyway.
For my father-in-law. So,
but my wife is making an effort to make friends with the parents. And if some of you out there who have had kids know what this is like when you were trying to get your kid to like be part of the fun, you have to make friends with the parents who you like,
right?
If it's possible. So Max has got some cool friends' parents that Christine really likes to hang out with. I like them. They're nice people. They live nearby. So this was like her first time like entertaining them at the house. And it was a lot of fun.
Nothing at all stressful about getting ready for that.
New. And it was the day after being with my boss at his house.
So, what a weekend.
Yeah, it was a rough weekend, but it was a lot of fun. One of the parents, where I spoke about, he had a really rough time at one of these gatherings, drinking. And
you told the story, I think, right?
He embarrassed himself really bad, and he was already a known. Like it was known that he liked to drink and could get drunk, and the wife sort of joked about it, with the side glance at him type of thing, And so, but after this one, and he didn't like come to me or anything and ask about it. It's just I found out that he hadn't had a drink in 3 months.
Booyah!
And I thought that was really interesting. So he was at my house on Sunday, and we sort of got into some of that because we were all still in that getting to know each other phase a bit, and the topic came up about drinking because he's not drinking anymore, and they all knew him as a drinker, but they've always known me as I've been refusing drinks since day one, and so my story is a little bit known. They know I don't drink, and now he's another one not drinking. But the conversation at the table was very pro abstinence and really
coming from him,
but the reaction to everyone, it wasn't like, you don't want to drink, you'll never have fun again. It was a lot of people saying similar things like, you know what, I've been cutting down too, or I've been thinking about quitting for a bit. And it was kind of interesting. So like the abstinence culture is sort of, I think, getting more well-known, more prevalent, more acceptable, I think. And so that was really great.
Do you think when people sort of drift out of their 30s into their 40s and they have kids and stuff, it's sort of like a natural progression towards using less alcohol?
I think maturity, should bring that along. And I've talked about that a little bit on how I've been observing that I've really just grown up a little bit. And I don't like to reduce sobriety to maturity, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, like a lot of people do just age out of that kind of behavior, if you're capable of it.
Right. Well, was my next point.
Like clearly he wasn't an alcoholic to that extent where he couldn't stop. Because he just kind of put his hand up and stopped. He didn't go to AA. He didn't do anything.
Well, to me, that's not surprising at all. I mean,
it's most people, but I couldn't do that. A lot of people out there that I met in rehab weren't able to do that. But maybe that was maturity. Maybe he grew up finally or something.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he made, what do they do in Smart Recovery? You make a cost benefit analysis, whether it be informal or formal, and you decide like what side of the axis that drinking falls on, and what you really want out of life. And that is informed by maturity. I don't think when you're 20, you're really thinking about things in those terms, so I think it's much harder when you're younger to sort of pull out of that nosedive without some social structure like AA provides. But when you get older, I wonder, I mean, so as far as he's not gone to a 12-step program or anything?
He's not gone to a 12-step. When I asked what his secret was, however, he said, my secret is that the FDNY doesn't test for marijuana anymore. So he's using
California.
He's using cannabis to sort of help him work through those cravings. And he wasn't like stoned at this party or anything, but he said to me, like, with a look of severe, like, real relief, he's like, it's so much better than drinking. I miss it sometimes, but it gets me through the night a little bit, when I get that anxiety to drink. And so he's using, and it's made his life a lot better. So he's enjoying a better life at home with his family because he's, quit drinking, but he's, harm reduction and keeping his anxiety in check a little bit. Would it be better if he went to a doctor and they gave him Prozac? I don't know.
Right.
Is Prozac that good for you? I mean,
I think marijuana is probably better for you than taking something that screws with,
Yeah. So that was really
chemistry
cool.
like that. But that's really interesting. I mean, I've heard a lot of anecdotal evidence about the use of cannabis for, easing the transition from, maybe he'll make it, maybe someday he'll just put the cannabis down.
Yeah. But if he doesn't, is that a horrible thing? I don't know.
As long as he can function.
Yeah. So we'll see. But that was a really great time.
As long as he's happy with himself, that's what matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just got one other thing I wanted to touch on in this update, which is we're at an hour and 2 minutes.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk
about. We have not talked to one another in a while, have we? So I'm sitting in the other room today. Speaking of like friends' parents, okay, there's the segue. When my son Jack was a kid, he went to a pre-K in St. Paul's, the Apostle Church in Jericho, right? They had a pre-K program half day, and he went with this kid who lived in Oyster Bay, very, very wealthy family, and then when we moved to Oyster Bay, then they became friends in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way up through probably close to like sixth grade. And but it was always a very strange situation in their house because the kid's father was American, the mother was Chinese, but the father was very like he like wore tracksuits and chains and stuff, and you kind of got got like a weird little mafia vibe off the guy. But he was also, and I came to realize this towards the end of their friendship, he was bipolar and he had a severe drinking problem.
Okay.
So I did not know this, but through another person in town, word got back to me that his wife threw him out of the house because he pulled a knife on somebody at Dell's and tried to stab somebody. So
do I know this guy?
I don't know, because there's no other kids in the family. It was just that one kid who was Jack's age.
Interesting.
I'm not going to say his name, and
you should out him right now.
I'm not, because he had his issues. He had his mental health issues, and clearly he had the booze issues. And he was, the bipolar I put my finger on right away, because I'd go to pick up Jack sometimes, and he'd be up like cleaning his gutters at like 11:30 at night with a flashlight and a toothbrush, kind of a deal.
Sounds like meth.
Maybe, but anyway, at the time that Jack went over there, I mean, very wealthy family. They had limos, they had drivers, they had nannies, the whole thing. Like, they were always taking the boys out for, like, carnivals, this, and this guy always had a big wad of cash he was flashing around. Huh. And, but the wife, there was always these Chinese people who were coming over, and they were building some kind of big school or some kind of Chinese Disneyland in upstate New York. It was always very unclear what was going on, but there was always like business people and meetings. And I'm sitting doing some work today, and I hear a scream, and Erin is like, look at this. And on CNN, there's a picture of this kid's mother with Donald Trump and Melania.
What?
And she had just been arrested for running this scam. She like
Chinese Disneyland
stole
scam?
Like $27 million from investors and promised like all these Chinese people green cards, like if they would invest in this thing, but the whole thing was like it didn't exist. Yeah.
What?
So, and we of course were theorizing that the father turned her in, and this whole thing.
Wow! After they broke up, yeah,
but it's just kind of crazy, and I feel really bad for the kid, because even though Jack was not really friends with him anymore, that kid, like, we were like the most normal home life that he had, because he would come over here and he'd spend like days over here.
Really?
Yeah, just like 2 or 3 nights in a row. And the father's crazy now. The mother's going federal indictment. She may be going to prison, and this kid, you wonder, how much the alcoholism and all this stuff, together.
Yeah.
What that does to another generation and stuff. But, I'm not going to use any names, but if you guys want to Google this thing, I'm sure you can find it. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It's out there. I mean, it doesn't help. Like, one of the things, Dr. Mike, the owner of the company I work for, when we talk about it, and sometimes, we're talking about something and I'll say something. I always look through the lens of addiction. But he made a good point, when I was talking about someone, and I said, oh, maybe if they just got sober or something. And he goes, he was talking about this one person. He goes, that's borderline personality disorder, and stopping using isn't going to fix that.
Right.
And so at some point you can't blame addiction anymore, but it certainly doesn't help. And at least when you get your sober baseline, you can then get an accurate idea from a doctor on what the underlying issues are, if they're fixable. So, that's a case where we just will never know.
Yeah, I mean, you can't begin to treat the underlying issues until you stop the booze, right?
Believe me, I tried.
How can you fix your head if you're fucked up all the time?
Yeah, I tried. I mean, when I was struggling way before I got anywhere near recovery or got in trouble, I was drinking a lot. And, I was having issues with my wife at the time, or we might have been dating. And I remember I'm like, I got to go see a psychiatrist. And I went, and none of it mattered, because he was just like, well, how much do you drink? And I actually I wasn't even fully honest, and it was too much. And he's like, well, you got to stop drinking before we can really work together. And I was just like, it's impossible. That means I can't get better.
Right.
I never considered until much later, till I was forced by the court, but I never really thought, that's an option. I can stop drinking and then address, when you're in that state, it's extremely difficult.
I had that exact experience. I went to a Zen Buddhist monk who was also a psychotherapist.
Oh, wow.
And he told me, I must have mentioned this on the show before, but he asked me how much I drank, and I told him, I don't know, 8 or 9 pints a day most days of the week. And he was like, well, you have to stop. Like, you have to go to AA. And, next time you come back here, I want you to tell me how many AA meetings you went You went to, and I was like, well, fuck, I'm just going to lie to him. So I came back. I went back, and I was like, yeah, I went to AA meetings, and and then
I did the same thing.
Then I fired him as a therapist like a week later.
Yeah, because it's his fault that you can't stop drinking, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I did the same thing. If you guys have stories about going to therapists and psychiatrists and trying to get better without getting sober, write us.
How'd that work out for you?
Yeah, because I think a lot of us have that same scenario. Early on you go and then you're lying to the therapist, which does you what? Nothing.
It's just flushing money down the toilet.
And then you I inevitably turned around and blamed them, but really it was this obvious thing.
So much crazy
Mike R. at middleagesrecovery.com. And with that, I think we should take a short break, and we're going to get back to the meat of the issue. Well, we'll be discussing how creativity and addiction and drug use has been tied together for so many years, and we're going to take apart that myth about using and creativity, and we'll be right back after these words.
Well, I didn't see The Honeymooners when it was first broadcast, for Christ's sake. Didn't you watch that when you were homesick ever?
No.
Maybe it was different reruns. And we're back. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. So today we've decided to take a closer look at the myth of creativity being fueled by addiction. Mm-hmm. We all know that there's this old saw out there that artists and writers and other people who make their living off creativity don't want to quit or don't want to get into recovery because they're afraid that it'll kill the goose that laid the golden egg, be it a novel or music or what have you.
Yeah, and people love to say, oh, Edgar Allan Poe was an opium addict, and they'll name some, like, oh, Jimi Hendrix, was on acid all the time, as though this validates it somehow.
Well, I guess there's a long list of creative geniuses that have also battled addiction, including Beethoven, which I did not.
Oh, really?
I wonder what he was addicted to.
Well, Vicks VapoRub, probably.
Baudelaire, Balzac, Byron. It looks like somebody stopped at the B's. Oh, and then jumped to Wordsworth, Keats, Berlioz. I don't know who that guy is. Hemingway, but we know he ended up.
I read his daughter or his granddaughter's book, Mariel
Stravinsky, Faulkner, and then, of course, you have Bob Marley, Louis Armstrong, Frida Kahlo, and the members of the 27 Club. You know who the 27 Club are?
Who are they?
The 27 Club are like Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Pigpen from the Grateful Dead,
the most famous one,
Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain. These are all artists who died at age 27, either by suicide or drug overdose.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's coincidence. I mean, so many of them have died of drug overdoses that there's bound to be 20 that all died at 27. I guess.
I don't know. Anyway, the 19th century philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once opined, for art to exist, for any sort of aesthetic activity to exist, a certain physiological precondition is indispensable: intoxication. Nietzsche was an asshole, though.
He was a famous drunk, right? Or wasn't he on something at all times?
I don't know.
Didn't he die of chlamydia?
Or syphilis or something.
Yeah, it was syphilis, right. He did. Yeah. But yeah, so, I mean, it goes to the point that, you've all heard this out there. Van Gogh, he was, people would say, oh, he was drunk or something, but I don't know if I ever believed it, but it's like this myth that it's in the back of our minds.
Yeah, and it takes up residence there if you are a creative person, if you're a musician, or if you're a writer, and it forms the basis for a very good excuse for you to continue to use drugs. I remember, being in college and reading all these books by guys like William S. Burroughs,
yes,
and Charles Bukowski, and Henry Miller, and all these guys that were just wasted all the time.
Right.
But the way they wrote about it was so romantic that it was just incredibly appealing. So as you were swirling the drain in drug addiction, you could, in your mind, create this incredible fantasy that you were living this beautiful artistic experience. Meanwhile, the only thing that you're really creating is misery.
Yeah, that's true. And that's that whole beat poet generation.
Yeah,
too.
right. Well, yes.
And the musicians.
Kerouac and Ginsberg and all these guys. I mean, who arguably produced some very incredible works of art and literature.
Right.
But was that like because of their intoxication or in spite of it?
Yeah, Pollock was another one. I remember seeing that movie about his life, and he was a bad alcoholic. Ed Harris, and it's interesting, and there's been some studies, and people we've got an article called "A Closer Look at the Myth of Creativity Being Fueled by Addiction," and it's where they're sort of covering that myth and really just pointing out that more than likely it's just people who suffer from addiction or are people who are creative have similar like crossover things that they do typically. Like it starts by saying many artists, writers, and others who make a living off their creativity are very hesitant to quit drugs or alcohol because they are afraid it will affect their ability to produce original work. This notion of drinking and drug use fueling creativity has been widespread for quite some time. The truth is that using drugs or alcohol actually impairs a person's creative ability and makes it much more difficult for them to be productive. The myth that links substance abuse to creativity may have arisen due to the fact that many creative people also have a higher susceptibility to addiction, which is kind of what we were saying there. Creative types are much more sensitive, perceptive, and able to think in unique ways than the average person. A person who is highly creative also happens to be more likely to suffer from mood disorder, which is another interesting aspect of this.
So why is it that creativity and addiction seem to reside within the same person? Because it seems to me that what you read there, what the author is saying in this article is basically that creativity and addiction go hand in hand, that they do support one another in some sense.
Well, the link between the two, creativity and an addictive personality, can be better understood by taking a closer look at the characteristics associated with addiction and having a creative nature. According to this article, some of the shared characteristics include a strong tendency toward impulse behavior.
Okay.
Placing higher value on nonconformist beliefs, behaviors, and ideas. Another one is needing regular stimulation, and excitement. Always looking for that next thing, that adrenaline, like, this job, it's like always high pressure, and can you make it? And then you get the dopamine spike when you make it.
So it is, a lot of it is tied up with dopamine, isn't it? Because if you're a risk taker, you're also more prone to addiction because you need to get you need to push the envelope, right?
Right. Studies have shown that addicts and artists share impaired dopamine functioning in the brain. Okay. So low levels of dopamine. In other words, low dopamine levels cause them to experience less pleasure, and as a result, they have to work harder in order to feel good. Creativity during recovery. Even though it is another thing, like I relate to this because I was using drugs in high school, in college, for the express purpose of being creative.
Right.
So I got myself to, and it was going well, I thought, because when I first started using uppers, it was like, now I have this whole album in my head, and I just have to get it out within the next 24 hours. And I've got 24 hours to do it, and let's do it.
Big bag of blow, and I'm going to get it out.
I used to have the guitar part worked out in my head, the bass, keyboards, production ideas, how many times I'm repeating things, lyrics, and then ultimately it would be too much crap on top of it, like a Prince record, just like too many tracks, but once I stopped, it got to a point where if I wasn't using, I had like anhedonia. I was completely devoid of creativity. It completely I was convinced that I needed it.
Yes, but I think the problem is people don't push through that to get to the other side. You know, you get stuck in that area and you think like you have a block and you're never going to get past it. But really, while you're recovering, your brain is rewiring itself, and all of that stuff that makes you the creative person that you are is still there.
Yeah.
It just needs to come out in a different, less, self-destructive way. I mean, I remember, I don't think I ever played the guitar in front of another human being unless I had a bunch of drinks in.
Oh, yeah.
Like I just couldn't I did not have, but like if I was practicing in a studio, I remember very specifically knowing that there was a certain amount of booze I could drink that would get me loose enough to play well. But if I went over that line, it would all fall apart. And it was the same thing with weed, because I would smoke some weed and things would be great. And then if I smoked too much weed, I couldn't tell the difference between the sound coming out of the monitor and the sound coming out of my friend's monitor, and I get very confused. And I don't know if you watch Family Guy.
I did.
We were talking about, but do you remember there was an episode where Lois and Peter recreated they had a band, a folk duo in high school, and they had this idea that they were going out and putting on performances, and everybody loved them, and it was great. And then what really was happening is they were smoking so much weed that they were just lying around going like that.
I did see that one. Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of like distorted self-perception also about the level of creativity that you're capable of when you're high.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody like Hemingway, I guess, can sit there and drink wine until he passes out and write, The Sun Also Rises or whatever else. But I actually find Hemingway to be incredibly boring to read, but that's, and nobody likes to say that, but I think he was boring. And then he eventually blew his head off with a shotgun when he got older. So
the man wasn't
he had
healthy.
some untreated mental health issues, I would say.
And who knows what he could have produced had he been sober, Right. I find it's, I had the same experience when it came to performing, but, if I was with a band or with an act that I was playing with, I never, like maybe once, I did an upper or like a cocaine or something or Ritalin, and I regretted it, and I never did it again.
On stage, you mean?
On stage, because when I was on an upper, was shaking. I couldn't, because I'm trying to play some difficult parts, which normally my muscle memory takes over and I can just do it. But when I'm like that, I have to think about everything because it's just not working. So I was able to not drink that much. Like I would have a beer just to put it on my amp because it looked cool. But I didn't get drunk until after. When it comes to writing music and writing things or being creative, I needed something.
That's interesting, because you look at a guy like Hemingway or some of these poets and everything, and you have that a bit of the Jerry Garcia syndrome, I'm going to call it, because people are telling them that they're geniuses. Like Hemingway was a genius in his own lifetime. So he's like,
told me that.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, look, you have a record out, right? I mean, you wrote some songs, you had a career of sorts as a musician, right? I mean,
yeah, but I was never fully pleased with what I came up with, like I was always, I don't know. Some people think they're great. Yeah, but it took me quite a bit of time. Like I remember lamenting once I finally gave over to recovery. I definitely felt that where once you stop using, you have this like deficit of dopamine and creativity that has to pass.
But that comes back, doesn't it? I mean,
it does. Many people new to recovery find that they experience diminished creative abilities. This may have something to do with the fact that their brains are adjusting to the loss of drugs and alcohol. It may take several months for the feelings of fogginess to completely dissipate. People who have been sober for longer periods of time find that their concentration and mental functioning become sharper than ever. In the meantime, there are a few things a person can do in recovery to enhance their creativity.
Okay.
Do you want to hear them?
Sure.
There's only a few. Well, the first thing they list here, practice meditation. The second is...
I would say and visualization.
And visualization.
Right.
The next one is...
What is visualization, Nat?
Like you closing your eyes and you see your goal. You like envision the person you want to be.
Well, or to make it even more pedestrian, if you're trying to like write or you're trying... Okay, never mind. Go on, because maybe this isn't another one.
Regular exercise, such as yoga or walking.
Good. That helps
Journaling.
with the dopamine. That's where I was waiting for you to get to.
Journaling.
Have you heard of this? Have you heard of this program called the Artist's Way?
No.
Okay. The basic foundation of the Artist's Way is every morning you get up and you sit down and you just write for a certain number of pages, I think it is.
Force yourself to just write whatever.
Whatever. Don't edit it. Don't, it's just whatever comes out.
I like it.
And after you making this a regular practice, you will find that it sort of loosens up the connections in your head or tightens them, loosens them, tightens them, but makes it easier for you to access your creative impulse because you are working it like a muscle every day. But because you're not putting restrictions on it, like, I have to write about this, or I have to write about that, or I have to watch my sentence structure. It's basically like automatic writing. It's just like diarrhea out on the page.
So you're getting filled with the spirit, inspiration.
Yes.
So, the word inspiration comes from inspiritus.
Yes.
Did I just make that up?
I think so.
It could be true. But
I was agreeing because
the Latin, I think that's true, though. It has something to do with getting a spirit inside you. It's like being inspired. It has the word spirit in it because you're almost like you're being possessed by the creative spirit.
I would like to know if anybody out there is familiar with the Artist's Way or has practiced it or has practiced any kind of journaling like that.
I've done that before with music. This was something that, without knowing it, I used to do, and I should do it again when I wasn't feeling particularly inspired. Once I got sober and I wanted to play guitar, I didn't one day get inspired. I started picking my guitar up every day with no plan except for I'm going to pick it up, I'm going to start playing scales. That was my first exercise, just scales. And as I played, I would inevitably start doodling. And then I would start playing something else. And then maybe I'd play something I remembered how to play. And then it would inspire me to play another thing. And then maybe I would write something. Or maybe I wouldn't get inspired. I'd just play a bunch of scale studies for a half an hour and call it a day. But the next time I did it, it's like working at a muscle. So I would imagine this is the same kind of thing. You just sitting down and you're just writing anything.
Yeah, it's almost like a writing meditation.
Yeah,
I actually kind of put out the question to some of the folks on the Discord group.
Really?
Yeah, about creativity and the persistent myth of alcohol and drugs making it an aid. And I asked their experience, and I didn't get a ton of responses, but I got a few. You want to hear a couple?
Yes.
Okay, so Meg says, I think with my senses and mind being clearer, creativity is more accessible to me now, and the finished product is better. So what about that, being able to access that more creative part of your brain without the clouding nature of drugs or alcohol?
Well,
do you think you can tap into that better?
Yeah. I think that you are, when we're creating, and those of you out there that have created things as far as like music and art or written poetry, I find myself when I'm in the zone, like writing something, recording something, making something, it's almost not me doing it. I feel like something is working through me.
That's right.
And to tap into that gets more difficult when you're clouded with drugs and alcohol, I think. Like you do initially get this sort of false sense of creativity where you're outputting a bunch of crap. And sometimes it's a little good, but I used to find that when I listened to my recordings or whatever I wrote while I was high, it was usually not great, compared to when I sat down with the band Kind of Me and we worked on those songs in a sober way. It was better. And you're just working off other people, in the band or, I think absolutely it lets you tap into the ether.
The thing that's like confounding though is like you can't really say that. I mean, there have been a lot of good music and a lot of good writing produced by people who are under the influence of narcotics and alcohol.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no question.
Yep.
Right. I think where people get hung up though is that thinking that one created the other. It's correlation causation.
Right.
Sorry, I just pulled your headphone. But
it's not necessary. It can be a tool, or it can change your perception of reality, which can give you like a different kind of perspective and may inspire you, but I don't think it is the root of inspiration.
Like most things, I think psychedelics may be somewhat different in that sense. I don't know. I think they're studying that now. I think
you can't wait to get into a study for psilocybin.
I honestly don't. I honestly don't want to take psychedelics, but I do get. I am sort of enamored with the idea that it lets you pull back and take a 30,000-foot view of yourself. Yeah. And I wonder what that seeing yourself from that level.
Well, certainly you've done acid before.
Yeah,
so
but I wasn't.
Do you really
with
need
purpose?
I
don't think so.
I think you got to look at your motivations when it comes to where we're at right now, and all of these new studies and new ways to treat addiction with non-traditional methods. Like, I think we've talked about this before. I think we just really have to. I'm not saying absolutely not. I never would, but I would need to really examine my motivations, and I would want my tandem sponsor to help me do that. And before I would, take that risk.
At my age, I'm not going to write like an American novel, or am I going to put together like a concept album? So if you ever hear me start telling you, Nat, I need to go eat a bag of mushrooms to write this piece of music, just be like, shut the fuck up. You know? Anyway, I asked Kyle too, and Kyle said, he says, I think with alcohol, it just muddles my brain and I can't come up with melodies as easy, and the motivation dwindles. So he's a musician. He writes music, right?
He's a serious musician. Yeah. He probably has a lot to say about this.
So he says, I've now made a habit of using my voice recorder app while I'm walking my dogs to hum ideas down that come out of nowhere, even from the rhythm of my footsteps. Now, I occasionally smoke pot here, and I do find as long as I have an initial idea set up on my computer, it does kind of help me expand on what I'm working on or get ideas down, because I can easily get distracted by my phone, etc. Although I agree with Meg that to finish anything, a clear head makes a better end result.
Right. I like what he's saying there. I mean, if you can get yourself to a place where you're able to simply, to do the core of your writing, sober, with your own inspiration. And what he said right there is great. I do that too. I do that with the show. As soon as I get an idea, I put it on my doc so I don't forget it. And then later. So, look, to each his own. And so long as I feel like you're not depending on it and you don't put yourself in a situation where you must have it in order to create anything.
Yes.
That's the danger. Yes. And you just have to know yourself.
Well, I got one more response, which was from Chris, 57, says, I've never experienced any real relationship between alcohol and creativity. In general, drinking sucked up most of my time and energy, and all other endeavors suffered. See, that was more my experience, That said, sometimes alcohol was a shortcut to warming up and made it easier to get into playing guitar or singing, but it's just as likely that what was really happening was that my inner critic was being quieted.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that answer. Yeah. So that kind of squares with my experience. I'm definitely not as creative when it comes to music as somebody like you, Nat. I mean, for me, it's just like, the limited creative abilities that I have. I was just basically shutting them off completely with alcohol. Like
That's interesting, because I can't listen to anything. I can't passively listen to music. This is a real problem for me. Like, anytime music is playing, my brain automatically tunes in, and Kyle could probably appreciate this. I listen actively every time music comes on. I can't stop it. I'll listen to the production. I'll listen to the chord progression. I'll listen to the instrumentation. I'll pay attention to but it's every time, but it gets me thinking, and then it gets me making stuff. So I can't stop it really. And this is why I've been listening to books, radio shows, and podcasts for the last 20 years to go to sleep, because if I listen to music, I'm analyzing.
Gets your brain going too much. Yeah. That's interesting.
Oh, that's a nice harmony. Oh, listen to that. Then, look at that.
I think at the end of the day, I mean, it's as simple as you think it is. I mean, if you use too much, it's just going to get in the way of you getting your stuff out, getting your music, your things out into the world. And if you're like most people, any much is too much.
Any much is too much. There was one more on this article before we move to the next article,
of course,
that I thought was bizarre. So after practice meditation, it lists lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
And I put 6 question marks, a capitalized really question mark LOL after it. That's
it's kind of a weird thing to just sort of drop in there without any explanation how you get there.
Do your lucid dreaming and you'll be fine.
Ben claims he can lucid dream.
Really?
Yeah, I don't believe him, though. I think he's watched too many TikToks where somebody says that that's what they do. And
yeah, it's not easy to lucid dream unless you do it naturally. I used to try when I was a teenager, and after talking to my aunt Eunice, who I've told you guys about, I got a book on how to leave your body.
Yeah,
I must have been 16.
Did it work?
I was able to get myself where I felt like I was 2 feet floating over my body, and then I'd freak out and go back in, and I couldn't get past that. But I definitely at least thought I perceived that my light body was raising up from the physical body. But that could have been because you're lying down, and you have to imagine that your hands are getting heavy, and you have to visualize your spirit coming out of your forehead. There's a whole thing that you have to do. And so who knows? I was probably sleeping, but you can't just do lucid dreaming in order to get more creative. But I thought that was funny. Yeah. There is a second article that speaks to you want to talk about the Cub Scout baseball cards?
No, but we're cranking.
You want to, because we have an article for Recovery in the News.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just do a quick.
Yeah, do a quick thing on that one.
So David Biello wrote an article that's called "Is There a Link Between Creativity and Addiction?" And then it starts off with addiction starts with genetics and the environment, but it's triggered by stress. So his main point here is how stress is a real cause of addiction. And that sort of thing.
I don't disagree with that, really. I mean, it's a cause, maybe not the cause.
A drink of alcohol, any kind, rails of white powder, a pill prescribed by a pediatrician to assist with attention deficit disorder, whatever the poison, addiction can take a powerful toll. Nor is it limited to drugs. Food, sex, and even death-defying stunts can exert the same pull, but it seems to be a particular breed of person who succumbs to addiction. Ooh, that's kind of mean. Most recently exemplified by the late singer Amy Winehouse. She joins the 27 Club.
Maybe not most recently, but
no, this might be an old. Oh yeah, this was written into
Okay.
Jimi Hendrix. It names the other ones. But I thought that they asked the question: is there a link between creativity and addiction? That's what we're asking. And now this article says no. I think the link is not between creativity and addiction per se. There is a link between addiction and things which are a prerequisite for creativity. We know that 40% of a predisposition to addiction is genetically determined via studies on heritability in families and twins, but there's no single addiction gene. And this, I've read this too.
Right.
I still haven't heard any expert or scientist or someone who actually studies these things say we found an addiction gene. We don't even know all the genes involved in conferring addiction risk. But the ones we do know have to do with the signaling of the neurotransmitter dopamine for pleasure and reward.
Yes.
You don't become addicted because you feel pleasure strongly. On the contrary, addicts seem to want it more but like it less.
This was a weird article because it purported to be about addiction and creativity, but then it just basically went into the causes of addiction. So
it wasn't that well written.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what the focus was, but that's just me.
Does curing the addiction eliminate the creativity?
Generally not.
Generally not. Yeah. When you cure the addiction, you're not changing your genes.
Right. So you either have the creative gene or you don't. Have they found the creative gene? They haven't found the alcohol gene, but have they found the creative gene?
It's right next to the penis.
As it always is.
All right. The two biggest factors are genetics and stress, according to this article. And that about does it for the main topic. You thought I was going to say for today, but
no.
We've got more to come, folks.
In fact, we have a late breaking news.
What happened? Late breaking news.
Late breaking news. Apparently, the model Chrissy Teigen says she's been sober for a year. Did you know this?
Who is that?
I know, she's some supermodel.
Okay.
She's a 36-year-old model and influencer. She announced on Instagram stories yesterday that she is 1 year sober and feels pretty good about it. Yay. Not a drop of alcohol in 365 days, she wrote. I miss feeling loopy and carefree, but to be honest, towards the end, it didn't give me the fun feeling anymore anyhow. Anhedonia. She tells a really compelling memoir about what happened, and some of the dark times that she went through. Do you want to hear one of them?
Yes.
Very quickly? She said, sometimes I get really frustrated looking back on days I should remember way better than I do because of alcohol. Like when I drank Cafe Patron and fell asleep while an Outback Steakhouse chef taught me and my friends how to make a blooming onion at my house.
Blooming onion?
I wish I was awake for that. I wish I remembered really any award show. LOL. Relatable struggles.
Me
to
too.
be sure. Anyway, congratulations, Chrissy, and I'm glad you're living your best life now.
I hope you remember the next award show
and the next blooming onion.
That's right.
Someone comes to help you make at your house.
Very nice.
Yes.
And now it's time for recovery in the news.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Motherfucker.
Yeah, baby. The gnat is back.
Coming in your ear holes. Take it. Take it.
Several people sent me this week's article.
Alliteration, everyone.
Oh.
Several smiling Smurfs
sent this shit to me. But the one I selected it's funny. Different people sent me different news sources, same article. I got The Guardian, I got Forbes, and I got Fox News. And the most readable one was Fox News. Although the comment section is a fucking train wreck. Just stay out of there. So anyway, sobering new study says that those under age 40 shouldn't drink alcohol at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Ever.
Not even a bit. The study is essentially encouraging young people to put down that gorgeous summer cocktail or delicious beer.
Why are they describing it like that?
Right this minute. You stop drinking that delicious thing.
Stop it.
People under 40 suffer the most significant health risks from drinking, according to a study done by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington in Seattle.
That's a catchy name.
Yeah. That's my old job. The health risks associated with imbibing include auto accidents, injury, and even murder. Murder most foul. Also, people under age 40 receive no health benefits at all from drinking alcohol, the study found. I suppose that part is not surprising, although what is surprising is, every gray cloud has a silver lining, and every news outlet made a very big deal over the fact that people 40 or older may benefit from a limited consumption of alcohol.
I noticed that.
A glass of red wine occasionally, for example, as long as they have no underlying health risks. It's actually not a glass of wine, though. If you look closely at the study, the amount of drinking that's considered healthy ends up being like a few teaspoons or tablespoons a week. It's not like bunch of drinks.
Can't you get the same thing from grape juice, like this antioxidant? Or is there an actual benefit to the drug alcohol? I don't think.
Yeah,
I have heard of one. I always hear antioxidants.
The health benefits from alcohol are clearly outweighed by the health risks. I mean, yeah, maybe your blood pressure will go down a little, but you have an elevated chance of dying of liver cancer. So
it seems insane. I mean, their main quote that they keep putting here is, "Our message is simple: young people should not drink, but older people may benefit from drinking small amounts." It sends the wrong message because anyone over 40 is going, "See that? I could drink as much as I want."
Right. Yes.
It's good for me.
Basically, if you're looking, the best, healthiest amount of alcohol to drink is none. I don't care what age you are, and everybody knows it. And if you're drinking booze for health reasons, I mean, maybe just have a juice or a smoothie or something instead.
I don't ever pretend like vaping is healthy for me. I readily admit that, no amount of nicotine is really great for me. And, but to lie to people and to make them feel like, it's okay to keep consuming and to keep buying, they want to keep the liquor business afloat. It's a huge part of our culture, huge.
Yeah. I mean, it's not. they admit like they've already thrown in the towel. While it may not be realistic to think that young people will abstain from drinking, we do think it's important to communicate the latest evidence so that everyone can make an informed decision about their health. I guess. I mean, I don't know. It annoys me that the amount of alcohol consumed in this society and the fact that the people who are pushing it know full well the health risks, and the fact that 70% of the booze purchased in the United States is by the top 10% of drinkers. So these companies know that they're marketing this poison to people with drinking problems, and then they get a thin veneer of some kind of like scientific study that they fund that shows that, if you drink like a thimble full of red wine a week, your risk of having a stroke is slightly decreased. It's all bullshit, but whatever.
Well, I mean, the point they make is small amounts of alcohol consumption are associated with improved health outcomes in populations that predominantly face a high burden of cardiovascular diseases, particularly older adults in many world regions. It continued, given these findings, we recommend a modification of existing policy guidelines to focus on emphasizing differential optimal consumption levels by age.
Blah, blah, blah.
Rather, it's bullshit. I mean, but they do make a point that when you get to the end of this article, it starts talking more about how we shouldn't be thinking in terms of men and women, because you see a lot of that. Like, women can have 3 drinks, men can have 5. But what this article is saying is that there's been a focus in the past on studying alcohol consumption related to gender. Such a report almost a decade ago entitled Closing the Gender Gap, the Case for Gender-Specific Alcohol Research, published in the Journal of Alcoholism. And what they're saying is today we should really look in terms of age groups and not so much gender.
That's interesting. I don't think anywhere you can find a study that shows that the ingestion of ethanol, which is alcohol, has positive health benefits at all. Maybe there is a correlation between some people that drink certain kinds of red wine, and maybe that's other things in their lives that are having, maybe red wine drinkers are more cardiovascularly active or something. But ethanol itself is a poison, and the body treats it like a poison.
It just seems bizarre. Like, why continue to make these small allowances? Why even bother saying for a very small number of the aged population who may have cardiovascular issues in this scenario, then yes, a half a glass of wine may help your cardiovascular, but like, what is the fucking point of saying that? When
and what is the fucking point of drinking a half glass of wine?
Right. Like, it's just, you get enough at...
Did you ever want a half glass of wine?
No, I didn't even want it for communion.
Yeah.
It's idiotic.
Go big or go home.
If anybody out there would like to argue for the health benefits of alcohol, I would love to hear it. And anything else you want to say on this one?
No, that's it.
And that's Recovering the News. Yeah. Now that we're in the news. Do you have the correct sound queued up?
Yeah.
Okay. It's now time.
Wow, what a dick.
Well, every time. Okay, here we go. It's been a while. I'm just thinking out loud. Weak and weird. Yes. Oklahoma man blames Bigfoot summoning for alleged murder of fishing buddy.
I thought that said fisting buddy.
Oh, God.
I need glasses. All right.
By who?
Tim.
Tim Banal.
Is he back from wherever he was?
He's back. And Tim writes, in a bizarre story out of Oklahoma, where many bizarre stories begin.
Of course.
A man arrested for allegedly killing his friend during a fishing trip told police that the deadly incident came about in response to his companion summoning Bigfoot to attack him. Yeah, alcohol had nothing to do with this.
Nothing at all.
According to a local media report, the very weird case occurred this past Sunday afternoon near the city of Ada, as Larry Sanders and Jimmy Knighton...
Larry Sanders. It sounds like a comedian.
It's that show.
Yeah.
Were attempting to catch catfish in the South
of course.
Canadian River by way of their bare hands using a technique called noodling.
Noodling. I've heard of that.
Interesting. However, their day took a dark turn when the two fishing buddies got into a disagreement, which ultimately left Knighton dead and Sanders pointing the finger at Sasquatch. Responding to a report of a homicide that had unfolded at the river, police say that they arrived to find Sanders recounting his role in Knighton's death to a family member. Upon being questioned by deputies at the scene, the noodler confessed to killing his friend by first striking him and then strangling him. As for why he did it, Sanders shockingly explained that Knighton had summoned Bigfoot to come and kill him. And in order to save his own life, the man concluded that he had to silence his companion before the proverbial call to action reached the hirsute ears of Sasquatch. I love Tim Bonnell.
Isn't that written into the Oklahoma self-defense statute that you're allowed to kill your noodling buddy if he calls Bigfoot?
Yeah. The second you call Sasquatch in to kill your friend, it's fair game. In what might be the least surprising aspect of the case, police also observed that Sanders, quote, appeared to be under the influence of something.
No kidding.
While the misguided measure of self-defense appears to have worked since he was not killed by Bigfoot, Sanders was subsequently arrested for Knighton's murder.
Oh, come on.
After the police recovered the downed noodler's body.
The downed noodler's body.
From the river the following day. Musing that the man's forthcoming nature, quote, makes it easier to prosecute the case, Sheriff John Christian indicated that, quote, you still have to prove all the elements of the crime, and that what the suspect is telling you is actually what happened. Since it is unlikely that Sanders will be able to find Bigfoot to testify on his behalf, he's likely facing an uphill legal battle in which, if he is found guilty, could ironically culminate with him facing the death penalty for the Sasquatch-inspired slaying.
Wow.
Wow.
So it's going to result in the very thing he was trying to forestall. That is
I would have taken
irony.
my chance with my friend summoning Bigfoot than with the Oklahoma State
I have to wonder,
legislature.
Did he think that was going to be like a mitigation defense?
That's definitely somebody high thinking like I've been high and thought I had a really great explanation out of something.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was totally, and he thought it through, and he's like, I just have to tell them. If I'm honest, I look them in the eye, they're going to believe me.
Right.
It's self-defense against Sasquatch. So,
well, I mean, look, this is Oklahoma. The jury, it's a jury of their peers. Who knows? Anything can happen.
There may be peers who this has happened to. So he may get...
It may not be a unique experience, is what you're saying.
He may get a sympathetic jury. And that, my friends, was Tim Bonnell and Week in Weird.
See, the thing I find funny is that Sasquatch never even made an appearance.
No, just the mere
why didn't he just blame Sasquatch for killing his noodling buddy?
That's how powerful Sasquatch is. The mere mention of him being summoned can cause someone
Sends terror into the hearts of men.
Violently stop someone summoning him.
I don't know. Are we done?
That about does it for today. I know I had a great time. Did you?
That was awesome.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We really miss you guys. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So tweet us at what you twit. Support your favorite show. Please, please, please. Drop a 5-star review on iTunes. I'm going to say this one more time because we need more reviews. Please, if you're still listening at this point in the show, you want to fill out a review for us. We're going to read it. It's going to be great. Join us at patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages for a higher level of support. Free extra merch. We've got, what else?
I'll send you some Oreos, whatever.
Yeah.
It might be a minute or two before we get back to you with another episode. I'm going with the family to Yellowstone, and then you are going to Greece.
Yes.
Shortly thereafter.
We are going to Greece.
If Chad invaded Djibouti, would Greece help? It's my foreign policy joke. I think I've told it before.
I love it.
No one's listening. Okay. Wrap it up.
And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something out of our little show, please share the love and help grow the RMA movement. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
That's progress, not perfection, which is definitely a motto of this week's show.
See you next time.
Be good. Oh, stay fresh, cheese bags. Bye.
Bye.